to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching Asean in Focus on today's headlines. Today, the United States and China reached an agreement to enhance their dialogue in an effort to improve their strained relations. And news from the waters of Bohol, where a ferry carrying 120 passengers and crew members caught fire yesterday. But we have some relief amid the concern as all individuals aboard the vessel have been reported safe. And our warning from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he expressed deep worry about the global climate situation. He highlighted that countries are significantly off track in fulfilling their climate promises and commitments, raising serious concerns about the world's progress in tackling the climate crisis. As part of the ongoing festivities commemorating the 125th anniversary of the Philippine independence, people gathered at the oldest park in New York City for a momentous flag-raising ceremony. Today, the United States and China reached an agreement to enhance their dialogue in an effort to improve their strained relations. This development comes after an extraordinary visit by Secretary of State Antony Blinken to Beijing, where he engaged in what officials describe as frank and open discussions regarding the escalating tensions between the two nations. Take a look. In a significant diplomatic move, Blinken, who is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Beijing in nearly 5 years, spent 7.5 hours in talks with his Chinese counterpart. As a sign of goodwill and commitment to further engagement, Foreign Minister Qin Gang of China has agreed to reciprocate the visit by making a return trip to Washington at a later date. Additionally, the two top diplomats have pledged to collaborate on expanding flights between the world's two largest economies. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, flight connections between the U.S. and China have been minimal, and this joint effort aims to address the situation. During the first day of talks, both Blinken and his Chinese counterpart, Qin Gang, refrained from making any public comments. Instead, they exchanged handshakes at the state guest house, standing before their respective flags. However, behind closed doors, Mr. Qin expressed his view to Blinken that the current state of relations between the U.S. and China is at its lowest point since the establishment of diplomatic ties. This revelation was reported by the state-run broadcaster CCTV. Qin stressed that such a situation is not in line with the fundamental interests of both nations' people, nor does it meet the expectations of the international community. These discussions took place in the ancient Dayutai Gardens. While addressing the talks, Mr. Qin issued a stern warning concerning Taiwan, the self-governing democracy that Beijing claims as its own. Qin emphasized that the Taiwan issue is of utmost importance to China's core interests and is a critical factor in China-U.S. relations. Indonesia has placed an order for 13 Ground Master 400 Alpha or GM400A raiders from Thales in collaboration with state-owned Indonesian defense firm PT Len Industry. The purpose of this acquisition is to enhance airspace surveillance capabilities across the vast Indonesian archipelago. The joint statement by Thales and PT Len Industry highlighted that the GM400A raiders will enable the Indonesian military to achieve a comprehensive air picture by integrating the detection of various threats, including jets, missiles, helicopters, and unmanned air vehicles. Although the exact value of the contract spanning several years has not been disclosed, it's worth noting that each raider comes with a price tag of several tens of millions of dollars. The GM400A Raider is a mobile system with an impressive range of 515 kilometers, Pascal Suris, the president of Thales International, emphasized that it also incorporates artificial intelligence capabilities to efficiently manage the vast amounts of data it receives. According to Suris, the procurement of these 13 advanced radars reflects Indonesia's commitment to monitor its surrounding airspace, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. The radar market has experienced substantial growth due to increasing geopolitical tensions. And news regarding the political situation in Myanmar and the stance of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Singapore's Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan addressed the issue, stating that the conditions were not yet favorable for ASEAN to engage in high-level talks with Myanmar. Take a look.
We condemn the coup in Myanmar and the ongoing violence against civilians, the instability in the country, the setback to national reconciliation, and the enormous impact on the economy. Unfortunately, it's now more than 2 years. We haven't seen any signs of improvement. From an ASEAN perspective, we had the 5-point consensus, and we haven't seen any significant progress. So we believe it would be premature to re-engage with the junta at a summit level or even at a foreign minister level. And in fact, our leaders at the recent ASEAN summit reaffirmed this position. Having said that, the ASEAN chair, Indonesia, is engaging across a wide spectrum of stakeholders. And the key point is this: you do need everyone ultimately to sit down and negotiate. I don't know how long it will take. The last time it took 25 years for some form of democratic transition to occur in Myanmar. I hope it won't take that long.
However, Minister Balakrishnan did not completely rule out engagement with the Myanmar junta. He acknowledged the importance of eventually bringing all parties to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, Secretary Antony Blinken expressed the U.S.'s support for ASEAN's efforts to resolve the crisis. He stressed the importance of maintaining appropriate pressure on the junta while also seeking ways to engage with the opposition in Myanmar. Thailand's foreign ministry has announced its plans to host talks with Myanmar's junta and neighboring countries in an effort to find a viable solution to the post-coup crisis. Take a look.
And in all of these efforts, we are working, the United States and Singapore, very closely together, both through ASEAN, but also on a bilateral basis. With regard to Thailand, I'd simply say that our full expectation is that the government will be formed pursuant to the laws of Thailand. That is our expectation. That's the expectation of people in Thailand as well.
Now, during the last ASEAN summit in May, no significant progress was made regarding the peace plan. Indonesian President Joko Widodo expressed concern about the bloc's relevance, warning that it risks becoming irrelevant. Myanmar's junta has been barred from participating in top-level summits by ASEAN as they have failed to implement a previously agreed-upon peace plan. According to a statement from Thailand's foreign ministry, meanwhile, this meeting will include the participation of high-level representatives from neighboring countries such as Laos, India, China, Brunei, and Vietnam. It's important to note that both Myanmar and Cambodia have confirmed the attendance of their respective foreign ministers at these talks. Meanwhile, the National Unity Government in Myanmar, composed of lawmakers from Suu Kyi's government who are working to reverse the coup, has strongly criticized Thailand's invitation to the junta. They believe that inviting the illegitimate junta to such discussions will not contribute to the resolution of Myanmar's political crisis. The situation in Myanmar remains dire, with a local monitoring group reporting that over 3,600 civilians have lost their lives since the coup, and the UN indicating that more than 1 million people have been displaced by the violence. In a joint press availability with Singaporean Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan, significant collaborations between the two countries were highlighted. They discussed various areas of cooperation, including space exploration, cybersecurity, supply chain, resilience, and clean energy initiatives. Let's listen in.
Our two countries are also seizing new opportunities to work together, from space and cyber to supply chain resiliency to clean energy. And we spent some time talking about that. As part of the Green Shipping Challenge, launched at COP27 last year, Singapore recently announced an MOU with the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach to upgrade digital infrastructure and to reduce emissions. We're partnering to advance our clean energy across Asean, including the Asean Power Grid, which will facilitate renewable energy development and deployment throughout the region and help Singapore transition to net zero emissions by 2050. And as part of our expanded U.S.-Singapore climate change partnership, we're announcing today new and enhanced areas of cooperation, from reducing deforestation to encouraging energy-efficient buildings.
News from the waters of Bohol, where a ferry carrying 120 passengers and crew members caught fire yesterday. But we have some relief amidst the concern, as all individuals aboard the vessel have been reported safe. It's a fortunate outcome in a potentially dangerous situation. The Philippine Coast Guard has confirmed that the MV Esperanza Star, an inter-island ferry, caught fire while en route from Lazi in Siquijor to Tagbilaran in Bohol. The incident occurred near Panglao Island, causing immediate concern. The PCG wasted no time in responding to the distress call from the Esperanza Star, the BRP Malamawi Coast Guard Substation Tagbilaran, and the Coast Guard Special Operations Unit Tagbilaran promptly mobilized to assist the ferry. At this point, details regarding the cause of the fire are still under investigation. All 65 passengers and 55 officers and crew members aboard the ferry have been reported safe and accounted for. They've been transported to Tagbilaran for further assistance. Coast Shipping Lines, the company operating the ferry, swiftly activated the fire suppression systems on board the vessel to minimize the impact of the fire. These included utilizing CO2 fire hydrants and sprinkling systems. These immediate actions help prevent further damage to the ferry. The company, called Shipping Lines, has announced that they will replace the fire-affected ferry with the MV Kataingan later this week. This decision enables them to continue providing transportation services to passengers and cargo along the Cebu City, Tagbilaran City, Lazi, Siquijor, Iligan City route, and investigation is still ongoing on the cause of the fire. Addressing journalists in New York, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed deep worry about the global climate situation. He highlighted that countries are significantly off track in fulfilling their climate promises and commitments, raising serious concerns about the world's progress in tackling the climate crisis. Take a look.
And I am very worried where the world stands on climate. Countries are far off track in meeting climate promises and commitments. I see a lack of ambition, a lack of trust, a lack of support, a lack of cooperation, and an abundance of problems around clarity and credibility. The climate agenda is being undermined. Current policies are taking the world to a 2.8-degree temperature rise by the end of the century. That spells catastrophe, yet the collective response remains pitiful. We are hurtling towards disaster, eyes wide open, with far too many willing it all on wishful thinking, unproven technologies, and silver bullet solutions. It's time to wake up and step up. It's time to rebuild trust based on climate justice. It's time to accelerate the just transition to a green economy. Limiting the rise in global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius is still possible. Let's face facts. The problem is not simply fossil fuel emissions. It's fossil fuels, period. The solution is clear. The world must phase out fossil fuels in a just and equitable way. moving to leave oil, coal, and gas in the ground where they belong, and massively boosting renewable investment in a just transition.
Gutierrez further highlighted a staggering statistic. Despite the oil and gas industry's record $4 trillion windfall in net income last year, a mere 4 cents for every dollar spent went towards clean energy and carbon capture combined. The Secretary General condemned this imbalance and stressed the immorality of trading the future for short-term gains.
Last year, the oil and gas industry reaped a record $4 trillion windfall in net income. Yet for every dollar it spends on oil and gas drilling and exploration, only 4 cents went to clean energy and carbon capture combined. Trading the future for 30 pieces of silver is immoral. There is too much at risk for us to sit on the sidelines. Now must be the time for ambition and action, and I look forward to welcoming first movers and doers at my Climate Ambition Summit in September. The world is watching, and the planet can't wait.
And tonight's other news: an earthquake struck off the southern coast of Myanmar earlier today, causing tremors that were also felt in Thailand. The 5.1 magnitude quake occurred 152 kilometers south of Yangon, Myanmar's largest city, with a depth of 10 kilometers. Thailand's meteorological department reported it as a 6.0 magnitude earthquake felt in Bangkok and nearby provinces. The U.S. Geological Survey measured it at 5.6 magnitude. People in high-rise buildings in Bangkok reported feeling the tremors for 15 to 30 seconds. Fortunately, there have been no immediate reports of major damage or casualties. And the latest developments on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and its impact on the Philippine economy. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry is urging the government to allocate a higher budget for agriculture following the entry into force of RCEP. The PCCI highlights concerns that the lowering of tariffs in this mega trade deal could potentially disadvantage the agriculture sector. In a recent statement, the PCCI emphasized that while the RCEP presents opportunities for income generation, there is still much work to be done to fully capitalize on the trade agreement. The PCCI particularly emphasizes the importance of focusing on the agriculture and manufacturing industries. Additionally, the business group emphasizes the need to consider the country's competitiveness in areas such as transport and power costs in order to effectively leverage the benefits of the regional trade deal. PCCI President George Barcelon, speaking at the Department of Trade and Industry's International Trade Forum, stressed the importance of maximizing gains from the RCEP and improving competitiveness.
We have earlier, my friend here, Vice President Perry, mentioned about the IT sector, and the other ASEAN countries are more than what we're doing. The same thing applies to the agricultural sector. Okay. Our exports vis-a-vis import is half, while in Thailand it's the reverse. They export more than they double. They export double than what they import. And almost in Indonesia it's the same thing. So those are critical areas that we can fast track. Okay? And also are the markets that would have a upside to the RCEP. Okay? As mentioned in many of the discussion, our fruits there's a market for it, but we do not have enough production. So these are areas that I think that given focus, that we should be able to catch up. Okay? As mentioned in many of the discussion, our fruits there's a market for it, but we do not have enough production.
While addressing the media, Trade Secretary Alfredo Pascual acknowledged that RCEP is not a panacea for the Philippine economy, requiring concerted efforts from the government and private sector to seize potential gains.
RCEP is not a magic pill that if we sign up for it, all of a sudden our economy will boom. No. RCEP to be truly useful and beneficial to our economy, a lot of hard work is needed by government, by the private sector, by all those engaged in businesses with potential for exports. That's why, as I pointed out, we are undertaking an international trade and education advocacy campaign to make sure that all stakeholders in RCEP are fully aware of the gains that can potentially be obtained from RCEP.
Under the RCEP agreement, only 33 agricultural tariff lines in the Philippines will be liberalized to member countries, which primarily includes 15 agricultural products not produced locally. Now, these products encompass a range of items such as fish fillet, frozen mackerel, sausages, olives, and more. And today we bring you an important statement from Jeremy Lawrence, the spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Office, concerning the situation in Cambodia. Speaking from Geneva, Mr. Lawrence highlighted the urgent need for the Cambodian government to take immediate action to ensure a conducive environment for a free and fair general election scheduled for next month. Let's listen in.
Saying he is deeply concerned by the curtailing of civic space ahead of the poll. He says ahead of the election there must be an open and pluralistic environment that guarantees the rights to freedom of expression and opinion, and freedom of assembly and association. These elements lie at the core of an open and free society as envisaged by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this week, the Prime Minister said the government would amend the election law to bar anyone who boycotts the vote or encourages others to do so from running as a candidate in future elections. Such an amendment, if enacted, will constitute an overbroad restriction on the right to freedom of expression and a breach of the right of all citizens to stand for election, guaranteed by the Constitution of Cambodia and international human rights instruments. The Paris Peace Agreement and international human rights treaties are the guarantors of peace, prosperity, and a better future for Cambodia. He urges Cambodia's leadership to change course now to enable a vibrant civil society, a space for open debate, and respect for human rights.
And now we bring you an update on the important diplomatic event as Japanese Emperor Naruhito embarks on his first state trip since ascending the chrysanthemum throne in 2019. Today, Emperor Naruhito, accompanied by Empress Masako, met with Indonesian President Joko Widodo during their visit to Southeast Asia's largest economy. The invitation was extended by President Widodo during his trip to Tokyo last year, and the royal couple's visit is expected to further strengthen the friendship between Japan and Indonesia. Amidst a warm welcome, the imperial couple arrived at the presidential palace in Jakarta, where they were greeted by enthusiastic well-wishers chanting, "Welcome to Indonesia." A marching band played the Japanese national anthem, setting the stage for a series of significant engagements. President Widodo expressed his delight at the visit, highlighting its role in deepening the bond between the two nations. He also emphasized the importance of a solid foundation for the development of a strategic partnership, particularly in the economic field.
Sangat terhormat karena Indonesia menjadi tujuan pertama kunjungan kenegaraan bilateral.
私は帰国の多様性に満ちた社会文化について理解を深めるとともに、またインドネシアの歴史、そしてまたこの両国間の友好親善の増進に今まで尽くしてこられた方々の歴史にも思いを馳せたいと思っておりまして、また今後両国の若い人々の交流により、この両国間の友好親善が一層発展することを心から願っております。
Following his statement, a formal lunch meeting was held between the leaders, marking a pivotal moment in bilateral relations. During their time together, President Widodo and First Lady Iriana joined Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako for a pleasant stroll through the palace gardens. Japan and Indonesia have been actively enhancing their ties in recent years, recognizing the significance of Indonesia's growing economy and its strategic location along global shipping lanes. It's worth noting that Japan ruled Indonesia for over 3 years during the World War II, and the subsequent armed uprising led to Indonesia's independence from Dutch rule. Now, looking ahead, the royal couple's itinerary includes a visit to a military cemetery in Jakarta where fallen Japanese soldiers who fought in Indonesia's War of Independence are buried. Naruhito, age 63, holds a unique place in Japan's history as he is the country's first emperor born after the conclusion of World War II. Now, this global conflict was fought during the reign of his grandfather, Emperor Hirohito, who was at the helm during those turbulent times. Naruhito's birth symbolizes a new era, representing Japan's journey of rebuilding and progress in the post-war period. And today we take you on a journey to the vibrant city of Perth in Australia, where a vibrant celebration of Filipino culture is taking place. Filipinos in Perth are gathering to create a day. And at the heart of New York City, where the spirit of celebration fills the air, people are gathering at one of the most iconic locations in the city to mark a significant milestone in history as part of the ongoing festivities commemorating the 125th anniversary of the Philippine independence. People gathered at the oldest park in New York City for a momentous flag-raising ceremony. Joanne Soriano at the scene.
The celebration in honor of the 125th anniversary of Philippine independence continued on Friday with a flag-raising ceremony at the oldest park in New York City. Government officials and members of the Filipino community gathered at Bowling Green in Lower Manhattan for this second annual flag-raising, co-organized by the Philippine Consulate General in New York and the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. Consul General Sanen Mangalile spoke on behalf of the 85,000 strong in the Filipino community who built their roots here.
We consider this flag-raising ceremony in these hallowed grounds as a recognition of the many contributions and achievements of Filipinos to New York City as we hoist both flags of the United States of America and the Philippines. We honor the great city of New York that has made the American dream a reality for many Filipinos.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams acknowledged the role Filipinos played in the city and the symbolic gesture of this flag raising. But he said it must also be matched with substance.
So your community is so much in the fabric of this city and what we represent. So yes, we're raising the flag. That sounds simple, but don't miss our substance. How do we ensure that in a very substance way that you are at the seat of power, that you are there to speak on behalf of not only all New Yorkers in general, but specifically on the communities that you represent?
Recognition was made for Filipino Americans who now have a seat at the table. And Del Castillo, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, elected official for New York District 30 Assembly Member Stephen Raga, and appointed by Mayor Eric Adams as his deputy mayor, Maria Torres Springer. Mayor Adams was presented with a framed charcoal portrait by Ronald Cortez of the mayor wearing a Filipino barong. Joanne Soriano, New York, New York. Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angela. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.